This is the Guerrilla Social Work Podcast, your crackerjack clinical insurgents pitting evidence against anecdotes. What's up, Guerrilla Social Workers? We hope you're ready for another chat with your hosts, Jeff Daywalker Moore, and yours faithfully, Mace Warren. Jeff and I are both forensic psychotherapists that specialize in the clinical treatment of folks involved in the criminal justice system. We love sharing our misguided musings with all of you, and we thank you so much for your ongoing listenership. Hey, we're super sorry for the delay in posting a podcast episode. I guess that's just what happens on summer break. Either way, we're stoked to be back in studio. Today, we talk about the recent school shooting at Uvalde Elementary, our legislator's response, and whether clinical professionals like us have the capacity to handle this as a mental health issue. If you like what you hear today, please bake a batch of oatmeal raisin cookies for the 5-star rating, but when you deliver them, pretend that you actually baked them a batch of chocolate chip cookies instead. And now, on with the show. Future Primitive.
Center of Gravity, Future Primitive.
Is that a...
It's a band.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. Why do you have it on there? You didn't know what it was.
Oh, they're our intro music for this week.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Get that mic closer to your face. Dude,
It's
I feel
right
like,
up in it.
Yeah, no, it's not. That's good.
All
I
right.
feel like Joe Rogan telling you to fix your...
Put that about a fist from your face.
You know what I think? Dude, if you ever watch him, though, I swear, like, even if they nail it, like they got it right in the right spot, he always tells them, like, no matter what, you know?
Just kind of like his protocol.
Yeah, it's just one of his
Something he
things.
does.
Yeah, dude. So I sorry everybody that we're late on posting this. We had a previous recording that I don't know. I just didn't like it, and so I wanted to
get it right for you guys.
Well, it's kind of a hot button issue, but you know what? It's actually kind of a good thing because I had something come up that was related to this, and I wanted to maybe, what is that? Suss it out.
That's a term. Yeah. That is a term.
So, do you ever watch Ink Master?
No. Well, I mean, I've seen it, but
okay, you're aware of.
I'm aware of
the
it.
show, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty. I mean, I don't know why, but compared to other, do you watch any reality shows like that where there's competitions or anything like that? None. I mean, yeah. I assume the Ultimate Fighter doesn't even exist anymore. Right?
That's the closest.
Oh no, it
I've
does, huh? Yeah, there's like a season.
That's the closest
right
I've come to reality shows, I guess.
Okay. So Ink Master, pretty simple premise. Anybody has not seen it. I mean, you just bring a certain number of tattoo artists onto the show and you put them through some challenges. They're all artistic challenges. And the most important of which are putting actual tattoos on people. And then having judges, they have these two judges, Chris Nunez and Oliver Peck. No longer Oliver Peck. By the way, if you guys haven't known, he got kicked off, I guess, in season 13 because he had some, like, the worst blackface pictures you've ever seen. Like,
oh, really?
I mean, you've seen blackface pictures, right?
Yeah. We're talking like Trudeau level blackface?
Worse.
Oh boy.
Worse. Just look him up. I mean, if you just Oliver Peck blackface, it's pretty damning. You're like, whoa. Yeah. There's
like the minstrel show type where it's like super offensive.
Yeah, and at least on one of it seemed deliberately offensive. Like, and you'll see why.
All
like
right.
It was a costume. It looked like, but you'll see why. Don't want to glorify it here, but either way. So I watched this and while I run, because I'll sometimes train on treadmills, right? And while I'm running, I'll watch episodes just because it keeps my mind off running at the time, right? And so I'm watching these, and I'm probably watched, I don't know, 6 seasons now. There's 13 seasons or so, and And I've noticed a few things that parallel with a little bit what we're going to talk about tonight. So if I started to do a tally and started to do like a list of things that the judges tell the artists on their critiques every single week, right? Every single time that they do a challenge, and specifically when they're doing a tattoo, there are some really common things that they tell them to do.
Like the same kind of standard feedback to them?
Right. Same standard feedback. And this goes back to season 1. Okay. And some of the things, and if you guys watch the show, you'll know what I'm talking about, right? So the judges will, and I'll just name a couple. So they'll say, make sure you're doing solid outlines. Okay. They'll say use more black, contrast, saturation, right? And so some of these things like saturation, it's just making sure that you're filling up color in the area you're supposed to. Seems pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
Outline. Make sure your outline is there, and routinely. And there's a few more. And you could really go through every one of these critiques and start to statistically count what the judges are telling the artists, right? Now, knowing that, if you're now, I think they confirmed that there's going to be a season 14, right? And let's say you're an up-and-coming artist, right? And you feel confident, because those reality shows are always awesome, because I'm like, half of you know you have no business being here, right? You all know that. You have to know that. Like, all of a sudden, did you feel like you're just going to get better? All of a sudden, right? They have no business being there. Obviously, somebody has to win or lose, but there they are, right?
They needed fall people, right?
Right. Yeah. And that's why I always kind of dig and they kind of have some of these too, where they have like all-stars come back, people who've already won. Then it's like, oh, okay, we really get into nitty-gritty details of these tattoos. But let's say you're coming in season 14 and you have 13 seasons. I think they have, I don't know, we'll just say 15 episodes each. So you have all that information. Would you do any research going into that? Like, what would you look, if you're an artist, what would you look for?
Like if I was a potential contestant?
Yeah.
I'd probably watch all the seasons and start to see like, okay, what are some common threads that the judges look for? And I'd start to learn the things you were just talking about, contrast, solid outline.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Why wouldn't you? Right. You're going there to win after all.
Yeah.
Right.
Do a research. It's like a scouting report.
Well, right. And everybody goes on there and they all have their sad stories, which bothers me, I was bullied when I was a kid.
So I had to start doing tattoos and I feel free.
Yeah. Tattoos saved my life. Yeah. I'm like, okay, here we go. Like, I just want one person to say, no, I led a pretty good life. I'm here to win.
I'm just really good at this.
Yeah. Either way, I assume everybody's there to win. And the way to win, based on what the judges are telling you, the information is there. They know. And routinely, the artists come up and they will, they just defy what the judges are saying. Like, sometimes they won't do an outline whatsoever.
Like, they know better?
Yeah. They have to know better. And the judges will tell them, if you don't do solid outlines this next time, you're at risk of going home. And the tattoo artist will say, "Well, I'm an artist, and I do color realism,
yes,
and I don't,
and
that doesn't have solid outlines." And they're like, "Well, yeah, but look, that tattoo in 10 years is gonna look like a blob because of how it heals." So they're looking like for longevity of, I don't want to call it evidence-based tattoos, but they just know what good tattoos are long term, right?
Yeah, doesn't look good this month. It also looks good 10 years from now.
Right. Or and they'll say something like "let it breathe," and what they mean by that is they leave skin open, because if you put too much like black on there, which is one of their things they say to do, well, then it kind of looks like a cover up, right? And so they'll say you got to let it breathe a little bit, and don't use white to do the contrast, use their skin to do the contrast, right? And the artists argue with this and say, oh yeah, well yeah, but in 10 years that white's going to look yellow and it's going to look silly. And dude, it just reminds me so much of therapists in our field sometimes. Dude. Like, you have all the information in the world to do your job correctly. and you refuse to follow the evidence. You refuse to follow what you know will lead you to the victory line.
What do you think that is?
I don't know. I don't know what it is. I want to say arrogance, but it doesn't seem arrogant because these artists are so, it feel like when I watch that, they seem so beaten down when they have to leave and go home, and they're crying and everything. I'm like, well, that's not arrogance. Like arrogance would be, I'm better than you, and I know better than you, so F
not
you.
That, huh?
No, it doesn't feel that way. It.
What do you think it is with our therapists? Not our therapists.
Yeah, not alpha therapists. Alpha therapists are awesome. I'm saying like therapists in our field, they just get wrapped over the axle about things that they know have no bearing in terms of moving the needle for our clients, improving, outcomes, mental health, substance use, or otherwise. They just get into, and I don't know if it's because they're expressing themselves like artistically or expressing themselves therapeutically, but
I think I might know because I've been guilty of it.
Yeah. What do you think it is?
You actually helped snap me out of it. This is back in my due disclosures during group days. Mm-hmm. So a disclosure during group, meaning that the client would talk about their sex offense during group in like a very structured way. The idea being that maybe they would develop some insight, get some feedback, take accountability for what they did, then, lather, rinse, repeat. And I got to where I felt like I was doing pretty productive groups. Mm-hmm. And so when you started pointing out the research that we bring up all the time on this podcast, that disclosures during group don't really help. And in fact, they could hurt. I kind of dismissed it for a considerable amount of time because I felt like what I was doing was effective and I was resistant to evidence. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it felt like it led me to push back against what you were saying for probably a year or two. Well,
but part of that, and I'll give you a little bit of a compliment here. So get ready. These come few and far between. I would say I've sat through those groups with you, and my feeling is, looking back on those, I feel like the way that you did it was effective. But this is the problem. This is that what's that fallacy? It's like the I can't even think about it.
What is it? Like what's the?
It's like it's like a logical fallacy. It's the something about authority.
Appeal to authority.
Is that it? Something
it's
like
where I reference somebody that's an expert in this. And
there
so
you go.
I do it.
Okay,
yeah.
So the appeal to authority there is, I would say, I've probably witnessed a handful of therapists, maybe 3, I don't know, do those groups effectively, at least in my opinion, where I have seen or witnessed what I believed to be helpful insight on part of the client, right?
Yeah.
Now here's the problem with that is I can't replicate you. I can't replicate the other therapists I've seen do that well. And if you and I are trying to replicate groups and hand this knowledge down and skills down to a new crop of upcoming therapists, well, you're asking it's not a content issue, because you could use the same words that you do in this and just do content, but your style is missed and your personality is not there, and what the energy that you bring to the group is absent, and as a result of that, you're not going to see much forward progress or forward momentum from the clients because you're not there. So thinking you can replicate that's where I feel like there's a problem, because this is where some of these anecdotal type of treatments start coming about. And, there's perhaps one study out there or no studies. Maybe they just witnessed it, firsthand, and then they just want to do that. And I'm like, well, that doesn't mean, because it helped that one person that one time, or these 10 people that one time, and this one therapist knows how to do that technique really well, does not mean you can do that. And it does not mean it's going to go through the rigors of research to say this actually moves the needle. for our clients, right? And this was like, so the reason I was thinking about this more and more was because, I mean, I'm sure everybody's heard about the school shooting at Uvalde Elementary, right? And just to make sure I don't miss anything on this, I kind of wrote a few things down on this. So May 24th, 19 children were killed, 2 adults, and you have no doubt heard the trope that has been every time something like this comes up, it's put out there that this isn't a gun control problem. This is a mental health issue, right? Which I don't necessarily disagree with that, right? And I'm not, this is not to get political at all, whatever your gun control beliefs are, because now you've opened the door to say, well, this is a mental health issue, and that's going to fall on people like us to do this work, right?
Yes.
So one of the things is recently, and I don't know the exact dollar amount on this, but I know our legislators passed a bill. I know it's hundreds of millions of dollars are going to be sunk into the mental health field, right? And sent out. And so I'm worried about that. Even though I should be stoked about that, I'm a little worried about that because of how those dollars are going to be spent. And I guess the real question is I don't know, do you feel like we could even handle that issue? Is that an issue that mental health practitioners or clinical professionals like you and I, and not just you and I mean, we're just in that field, but in general, are we capable of even putting a dent in that problem?
Well, I think to a degree, you and I have like our opinion on it might, compared to other people in the field, might actually have a little merit just because we're consistently trying to, I guess, predict risk of people that hurt other people. I mean, in a sense, our wheelhouse is sexual offending,
or just criminal offending in general.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yes, exactly. General criminal offending and sex offending. And I mean, the main thing that makes me skeptical of our ability to do this is that all the risk assessment tools that we have are designed to predict the risk of reoffense after the fact, after we already have a sex offense on record. And then it's like, what's the likelihood this person's going to do it again? And the risk assessment tools they get better and better. And, I don't have a way of making them better. I think we're on the right track, but it's definitely still an imperfect system. And, with gun violence, there's no after the fact, like the Buffalo shooter isn't going to get another shot at life. He's going to be in prison and he's going to stay there, or they get killed like the kid in Uvalde.
So can you explain that a little bit? At base level, a risk assessment is just an instrument we use to help answer the question, like, is this offender, a criminal offender, somebody who's committed a criminal offense, relatively low risk or relatively high risk of reoffending? We're trying to predict or maybe give us a sense of the likelihood that they're going to reoffend, right? But like, how does that work? Because it's like you say, once somebody does a mass shooting and they're caught, provided that they don't kill themselves or are shot in the process, they're never going to have another opportunity to do this. So, I mean, how does that differ compared to like a risk assessment?
Well, with our clients, most all of them, they feel about it how you want to feel about it, but most all of them are going to be out in society again one day. And it's our job to vet them and to decide that based on their initial offense, their index offense, and the myriad of factors that we use to assess risk, that based on that, this person has a low, moderate, or high level of risk to reoffend, and therefore our treatment recommendations are X, Y, and Z. And so what we're being asked to do with gun violence is pick them out of a crowd without there being, an index offense to go off of. And so we're talking about, I think everybody kind of has ideas in their mind of the type of people that do mass shootings, kind of the disaffected young man that is socially isolated and, doesn't feel like he has any purpose and meaning in life and has, mental health issues and violence and, ends up deciding that if he can't get attention, he'll rage quit life and, goes out in a flame. And when that happens, like, I don't know, like how do you see that coming? There were warning signs with a kid in Uvalde, that got pointed out, like that maybe there were some things we could have seen coming, like that the kid in Uvalde, he had like a kind of a crazy social media background. He had mentioned things about, actually someone on social media on this whatever weirdo message board he was on had asked him, like, what are you going to do? Shoot up a school? And he actually said no, but watch and you'll see, something like that. He talked to that girl in France or wherever she was, I'm going to shoot my grandma in the face. I mean, those types of things are super concerning, but man, like if you've ever spent time on a message board for any amount of time, that's like how like 15% of people talk on message boards. Like we're talking so many people that there's no, like, we're not good at picking it out yet when it hasn't happened.
You're saying like if I go into a message board, like a lot of the hyperbole is just that.
Yeah, right.
It's
exactly.
just how do you know what's genuine threat versus? I mean, yeah, I just look at some of our group chats. I'm like, whoa,
we talk some crazy shit sometimes.
Right, and it's all in jest. Like we're just trying to make each other laugh.
Yeah,
it's never. There's never any teeth to that, though.
Right.
Like I'd never have thought any of my friends or, if there's ever, we usually talk about nonsense, but I mean, if there's ever a proposed, threat of violence, it's never that. And really, you were saying earlier, the risk assessments get better and better over time. But the reason why is because we have thousands and thousands of offenders who were using for, statistical evidence to say, okay, if, there's kind of different risk factors we look at, right? We look at static risk factors, which are kind of historical or just, things that don't really change, like how old is the person? What's their age range? What's their criminal history look like? Stuff like that. Those are things that don't really change. And based off of that, we can say, oh, okay, he's this level of risk. But we also, the other thing is sometimes their release is pending on our recommendation that they've reached a certain level of risk, right? And that usually comes from risk factors that can change. So those might be, say, attitudes or like beliefs and attitudes that support violence against another person, or really poor emotional regulation, or shitty use of your free time, or I mean, whatever. We can start adding those up, and that's what we're treating. That's what we look at those and we say, man, this guy has really poor emotional regulation. And then on our treatment plan, we turn it up on that. We say, well, let's focus more on that because that's the areas where he needs help. He or she needs help. But I'd say with the mass shootings, number one, I don't know if we have enough data at this point based on the number of mass shootings to start picking out specific risk factors. And then on top of that, like, how do we get that person into meet with a mental health therapist that could,
exactly.
Ideally, Ideally, I see this happening like this. We see a kid who's struggling. He goes to a mental health therapist. That mental health therapist is evaluating him. And then they see all these, quote unquote, red flags. And then they alert authorities. And then they detain the kid, lock him up for doing that, or I don't know what you do after that. And then in the meantime, the therapist intervenes to the degree that he's no longer a risk and the school shooting doesn't happen. That seems like what everybody wants to happen.
People want, yeah.
Okay, the logistics of that are tricky though. How does that person get into my office? How's the initial? They're just going to walk in, or is somebody going to force them to go there? And under what mandate do you get them to go there?
And why would they want to talk to you?
Right. How do you compel them to come and talk to a therapist? Right. Like, a court mandate people sometimes are not motivated to talk to us.
Yeah. When have you had a court mandated client come in, or I guess how often do they come in, and that very first session, they are 100% open and honest and tell you all the terrible things that they can't say out loud?
It's rare.
Yeah.
It hardly
happens,
hardly
but it's rare.
ever. It's rare. And even then I question where the motivation is at that point, because I'm a stranger to them and we have not had developed rapport. So I'm like, this is weird. I'm hearing all your, skeletons in your closet from day one. That's just not normal social graces, but if they're coming to my office, at least I know there's motivation there because they're sitting in front of me, right? That's good. I'm saying, how do we even get that kid to come in?
Yeah, I don't know.
How is it? So, and then if they come, so that's miracle number one. Maverick. You see Maverick, the movie Maverick?
Yeah,
oh my gosh, dude. Amazing. I need to go see that 3 more times.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
great movie.
Is Tom Cruise not the best man ever?
Yeah, he truly is.
I know, dude. Anyway, that's miracle number one, getting him in my office. Miracle number 2 is me recognizing this and somehow reducing dynamic risk on this potential would-be mass shooter to the degree that they don't act on that. And
what does that look like?
I have no clue.
Yeah.
I mean,
we should know, but we're expected to know.
Well, I know we work with some violent offenders. We've worked with murderers, rapists, all kinds of stuff. And I know what to look for with them, right? But I have a lot more information about that.
Right.
They've already acted out. I'm already they've already murdered somebody.
Yeah, we get them post-conviction.
Right. Here's the reason why I'm scared about this, especially if we even accomplish miracle number 1, is because let's say they come into my office, right? I was telling you a little bit about this, like this last, it was end of June, beginning of June, anyway, last month. Okay. I had to attend a training to be a MFT supervisor. So marriage and family therapist supervisor. So I'm an LCSW. Traditionally, we're not allowed to supervise MFTs because they have a different schedule, I guess, or requirement for supervision based on their licensure status, right? And when we signed up for this was forever ago when we signed up for it, we had an MFT who was working for us, and we're like, well, we don't want to have to pay for supervision elsewhere because sometimes it could be really expensive, right? So that's why we signed up for this. And look, think about this. I was in there with, I think, a group of like 20 or 30 other therapists. Now, these were all seasoned therapists who've been in the field for multiple years, all supervisors, all current supervisors who were now going to be supervising and training and mentoring new and upcoming therapists who have no knowledge of the field. Okay. And I mean, you've been to these conferences before. It was supposed to be a training, not really a conference. So when I was there, like
direct application skills and stuff, like how to be a supervisor.
That's what I thought. Okay. I thought this is how you have to be a supervisor for an MFT, right? And so we opened it up and introductions started, right? And they said, okay, your name, and this was half the day. I mean, or at least the first segment of the day. What's your name? What's your title? Where do you work?
ASL.
And what do you guys specialize in, right? Like and so everybody gets up. Now, there were some really choice specialties, okay? That just, and dude, what is in the water these days with equine therapy? And by the way, that's a horse, bro. Stop saying, yeah. I never call my dog a canine. It's a dog.
Horse, right?
Yeah. So horse therapy. I know you're trying to make it sound cool, but it's horse therapy. All right. What is in the water about this? Everybody's into horse therapy now.
Yeah, lots of money in the horse therapy field.
Yeah, I've watched The Horse Whisperer as well, and Seabiscuit, and like.
But they make them pick up their hoof.
Yeah.
That's
wonderful.
Yeah.
But look, I simply being around a horse, and I want you to, I really want somebody to break this down for me and quantify and codify, like, okay, this step 1, this step 2, this step 3, and this is how you change behaviors. Just saying, be around the horse.
Does that exist? Maybe that, like, I legit haven't looked into it.
I'm not going to look into it because it's nonsense. Okay. Look, I like horses too, I guess. I mean, well, actually, I don't. I don't even like horses at all. The last horse that the last horse that I was around, it's just, at the end of the day, it's a beast. Okay. That's a beast that has a mind of its own. And I know they're supposed to be majestic, but sometimes they're assholes, okay? And the last horse I was around rolled over and broke a bunch of my camping equipment on me,
Whoa.
Yeah, so F that horse, okay?
I haven't heard this story.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
I'm just saying, I don't like them, I don't like. I mean, but what is it about a horse? I mean, is there a quality about the horse that's different from, say, a cow? I don't even know what
quality
exactly.
Yeah.
Or a rhinoceros or a giraffe or an octopus. What is making the difference here? What is it about a horse that somehow magically makes people better?
Yeah.
Okay. Now don't tell me just the energy. Don't stop it. I don't want to hear.
Yeah, define that. What is energy?
Things that I can't measure. Okay. Yeah. If you can't measure it, it doesn't exist. Those things don't matter to me. I need science to help me here. Okay. And if you give that to me, and you show me some randomized control trials and maybe some meta-analysis, okay, I will start doing horse therapy. Until then, I don't want to hear about it anymore. It's experimental treatment, in my opinion. And and until you have all those studies, I don't want to hear about it from my clients.
Does that exist?
Yeah, I
mean, for all I know, that research does exist. I don't know.
There are for sure an article or two out there with 20 participants that, again, it is the appeal to authority fallacy. Is how do I know that, this Robert Redford-esque individual was not the secret sauce that led to the change?
Right.
And we're chalking it up to the horse. Right. So if I don't know nothing about horses and I walk you to some stable and be like, yeah, just go be around the horse, feed it some oats, and all of a sudden you'll be better.
Yeah, you're not Robert Redford.
Right.
Yeah, you're not going to.
So replicating that is incredibly difficult. Sure. Right. But it didn't end there. Okay. There was another gal that said, we do we're really excited because we're opening a trauma-informed yoga studio.
Trauma-informed yoga. Okay. Okay. All right.
I don't understand. So what happens?
She was a therapist?
So you're holding like a twisted eagle pose.
Yeah.
And then they start talking about your trauma? Like
that I have so many questions, man.
If trauma-informed is simply recognizing that people come in.
Yeah, so what does trauma-informed mean? Because we have trauma-informed CBT. So, what does trauma-informed mean?
I think a lot of times it's just respecting the fact that people come in with trauma and that it could be, I mean, yes, content.
Because it's kind of a buzzword in our field, trauma-informed. I mean, I could give you a half-assed definition.
No. And I don't think a lot of people have it. I've had people, I've asked licensing people what this means. And really what they've told me is, well, regardless of your modality of therapy, are you respecting that people, present with trauma at times?
Of course.
And that you're going to adjust your interventions to account for that trauma such that you're not deliberately triggering them or dismissing their trauma and you're kind of addressing it, right?
Clearly.
Okay. So then every yoga studio I've ever been in is trauma informed because nobody has ever talked about anybody's trauma in yoga. They're just telling you how to do poses. Okay. Like that. What does trauma-informed yoga mean then? Like, I think there's not a yoga instructor that's disrespectful about people's trauma history.
That'd be a funny skit.
Yeah. You walk in and you're like, hey, if your parents abused you, F you. Now get in downward dog.
Downward dog, idiot. Oh, yeah.
Like I've never heard of that stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't. And
it's just stringing together buzzwords.
Well, right. So my favorite one was we're really excited because we're starting to get into the field of canine assisted psychedelic therapy. I'm like, or no, it's psychedelic assisted canine therapy.
Wait, so what is So it's psychedelic assisted canine therapy.
Yeah, so I don't know if you give the dog shrooms and then watch it do stuff and then you get better.
Canine assisted psychedelic therapy would mean that the dog provided you the psychedelics.
so the dog's also your dealer.
Yeah.
Okay.
This pug's my plug. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, like, man, there's a lot of dogs. Like, is there a special kind of dog? I mean, can I have a Chihuahua, or does it need to be a bulldog? Yeah. What is it? A Weimaraner? Like, what is it?
Did you get any details?
I didn't ask because I didn't want to throw up. So,
sure.
But now look, this is why I don't feel confident in our field to handle this issue. Because I'm sitting with 30 would-be supervisors in the field.
Top tier people.
Yeah.
Not interns.
That are going to be now handing down this nonsense to other people in this field, right?
Oh, man.
And dude, when I stood up and I said, oh, okay, my name's Mace, blah, 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 and I said, yeah, I am a cognitive behavioral therapy purist. That's what we do. That's all we do. And yeah, I got like a response that sat somewhere between utter disdain and just, passive dismissiveness.
People actually said something?
It kind of like mild.
Like hissed at you?
Yeah. No, I wish. We really got to bring hissing back.
Hissing.
I could definitely, like, disappointed groans,
really?
Certainly rolled eyes, that were coming up about this, right?
Dismissing, I mean, just dismissing cognitive behavioral therapy, or just the fact that you said you're a purist?
I don't even think I said I was a purist. I just said I practice only cognitive behavioral therapy, and that's it. Motivational interviewing, cognitive behavioral therapy. But MI's kind of a style, not really a modality, right? And here's what I do know. I am not aware of any studies of psychedelic assisted canine therapy. Not one, right? But what I do know is that per our trainings that we've had, there are over 40 meta-analysis, a study of studies, and there's 40 of them, okay? That means thousands, tens of thousands of participants that using cognitive behavioral therapy reduces recidivism and reoffending. Like, that's what I know, okay? That's statistically been proven. The evidence is there, buddy. Like, there's no such thing as, and I know they've tried this stuff before. They've tried all kinds of different stuff, but never have they had a randomized control trial or a meta-analysis proving that trauma-informed yoga or horse therapy or canine, any of that stuff reduces recidivism, because it doesn't. Okay. But why do they insist on latching on to these things and continuing with them? Because the other trope that I heard, which also troubles me, is, hey, everybody, we get into this field because we don't want to make money, right? I'm like, do you know why that is? It's because of crap like this. It's, you choose not to follow evidence and do scientifically based interventions, and guess what happens? Nobody pays you for it.
Does this happen in oncology?
Like,
you know what I mean?
For cancer doctors?
Yeah. Like, do they have people that are doing this, like, canine assisted tumor? Like, it doesn't happen. Like, the treatments, I'm assuming that, I mean, again, people, I think, give mental health professionals a lot of credit that we've really got things sorted out and we know what we're doing, when obviously supervisors sitting around talking about the merits of dogs and mushrooms. Like, yoga informed, what is it? Trauma informed yoga, like
trauma informed yoga, goat therapy.
Yeah. Like, I think the general layperson thinks that we've got it together a lot better than we do, because they kind of just generally say mental health therapy, that's what needs to happen, without, that they don't see how the hot dog's made like we do. And so maybe I've got the wrong idea about the medical community, because to me, I'm thinking of, a conference where, oncologists are getting together talking about treatment options, and they're going to be bringing up meta-analyses of whatever either the gold standard is, or if it is a new trial drug that we've got more than just a cool sounding name with an N size of 20 backing it up.
Right. Yeah. And no, those don't exist. And the reason why is because the level of accountability that a physician and particularly an oncologist has to face is leaps and bounds above what we have to deal with. I mean,
right.
If an oncologist elected to do an experimental treatment that had no evidence whatsoever in treating, and well, number one, the insurance probably wouldn't even pay for it. I mean, are you kidding me? You go to an oncologist and they say, well, I don't do chemotherapy, I don't do surgery, and I don't do radiation. So, what do you do? And I don't care.
Folk medicine,
folk medicine. Yeah. I mean, whatever it is, the insurance
you get sued to oblivion.
Well, first of all, their patients are going to die. Okay.
Yeah.
And then they're going to get sued, and then those people aren't going to last very long, right? Whereas mental health, somehow we get a pass in this, and it's never like we can always lean on this idea, which I hear so much, which is so silly. I hear therapists say this all the time, like, well, I'm not going to work harder than the client.
That's a common thing.
Are you out of your mind? What other profession allows you to talk like that? I'm not going to work harder than the client. A mechanic? I bring my car in to get fixed. Hey, I don't know what's wrong with this. My car won't start. I'm not going to work harder than you. What?
Is it a way that we let ourselves off the hook in the field of like?
I think it's excuse making because we have poor outcomes and our clients aren't making progress. And so rather than just say, man, I need to change up my treatment plan and figure something else out, I say,
blame the client.
Well, I'm not going to work harder than them. I mean, it takes two to tango for sure, right? But I don't know. Your wife cuts my hair and I've never gone to her and I'm not going to work harder than you on that. What? You have to. I don't know how to do this. Yeah. I'm an idiot. Like I'll make myself look stupid, right?
Lopsided.
Yeah. Like we're providing a service, dummies. Like we need to be working harder than the client always because you're providing a service to them.
I like that level of responsibility. I mean, that kind of needs to be the mindset.
Yeah. Why wouldn't it be? And look, I always like to look, do clients still fail? Of course they do. Of course they do. We still have, I mean, especially in our field with like high risk offenders. I mean, we have like sometimes upwards of a 70%, failure rate of clients, and like in terms of recidivism, they reoffend or whatnot. Or no, the other way around, 30% recidivism. Okay, anyway, 30% is pretty good, right? So 30% of our clients, 1/3 of our clients will reoffend, right? Criminally, okay? Much lower on the sexual side of things. But and substance use, I mean, don't even get me started. Like, in terms of relapse rates, come on,
85%.
Right, it's crazy. So what I'm saying is, and that's not necessarily now they're in a full-blown substance use disorder. We kind of talked about that before. But what I'm saying is, even when we know when we're doing really good work, we still have those rates, right? But look, I'm totally fine when those things happen. And the reason why is because I look back on my work with that and I said, dude, I did everything I could to help that person. And I never said they needed to work harder than me. Whatever the reasons were, I don't even need to pinpoint the reasons. This person wasn't ready to change. That's fine. And my hope is that they recognize that I did enough work that if they need more help, they're going to come back to me again.
I think what you're saying there is an important distinction because people that hear you pushing back on the I'm not going to work harder might not be getting that you're saying that clients are still going to fail and they need to be accountable for that, provided that you have done your due diligence on providing the most cutting edge treatment, evidence-based, and genuinely trying to connect with the client such that you can deliver that treatment.
Right.
If you've done all that and you've followed everything that, me or another therapist would look over your shoulder at the work you've done and be like, yeah, it's about right. Like you have worked as hard as could be reasonably expected. Mm-hmm. And if the client fails, then that is on them.
Well, the other thing too is a doctor. Have you ever asked a doctor to explain why something works?
Yeah.
Okay, right. If you ask an oncologist, hey, how does chemotherapy work? Well, strap in because they're going to tell you, and they're going to tell you in detail. Ask a horse therapist how this works.
Oh man, that's a great point. What are they? I'd love to hear the answer.
Right. Now, look, this is not just us being
It's
cynical.
the relationship with the horse.
Right. Okay.
If
Now,
you can connect and feel the vibe.
now I want to hear. Now, okay, stop. Quantify and explain connect and vibe. Go. Right. I mean, okay, yeah. That's when they just start running.
Yeah.
Well, see ya.
Yeah.
Or no,
You can't put numbers to a vibe.
right. And what they would tell you is,
There's the art.
yeah, and they tell you, obviously your resistance isn't going to be effective because you're so resistant to this, and I'm like, oh my goodness,
I have to believe it, and then it will be true.
right. Well, and it's not just us. I know this sounds like we're being cynical,
Psychic mediums.
which we are being cynical, right? But I was looking at this and I did some research on some homework. This gave me some time, and I got an email from the Department of Human Services today, and they were talking about how like the Justice Reinvestment Initiative, the JRI status, exists no more. There's no such thing as a JRI certification, right? You know why that is? Because people, really smart people, presented evidence to our legislators and said, hey, people who are going to be treating offenders in the community need to be certified under these standards. This is what they need to do. Okay. So agencies like ours said, okay, cool. I agree with that. And then they said, you need to be doing X, Y, and Z. Do these steps to be certified as a JRI, agency. Wonderful. Got it. But then when it came down, and then they allocated hundreds of millions of dollars to all the treatment providers in the community, right? Okay. And then that money was distributed to clinicians who did what?
Shit the bed.
Whatever they wanted to do. They didn't follow the research. They didn't follow the science of what to be doing, even
That's
though
embarrassing, man.
Right. And hundreds of millions of dollars later, and after they doubled down on it, JRI certification no longer exists because people like us, responsible for hundreds of millions of dollars and responsible for working with violent offenders in the community, shit the bed and deliberately knowing it's deliberate. The evidence is out there and you chose not to follow it.
Right.
Now, I'm just saying, anybody who's looking at this, do you trust that a would-be mass shooter is going to go into a trauma-informed yoga studio and they're going to be able to figure this out?
Right.
Are you out of your mind?
Right.
Like that is your task.
So irresponsible, man.
Yeah. Irresponsible is the best word
Makes
for
our
it.
field look stupid.
Yeah. And we are dumb. Like, and it's not just us. This isn't just us either. Like, so I was looking
It's you guys too.
Yeah. It's you guys too. So I was looking at this, like, so this, I was looking through this Institute of Medicine book, right? So this and the Institute of Medicine, they have a lot to do. It was established in 1970, and they published this book called Psychosocial Interventions for Mental Health and Substance Use Disorders. Published this in 2015. So it's not like this is new, by the way. Okay, and this is by the National Academy of Sciences. Okay, and this is like they have all the eminent members of the field come in and they examine policy matters pertaining to mental health and substance use treatment, right? And they act under Congressional Act, all this other stuff, okay? The opening quote, listen to this. The efficacy of broad range of psychosocial intervention has been established through hundreds of randomized controlled trials and numerous meta-analysis. However, the quality of care that is actually delivered is less than ideal. Evidence-based psychosocial interventions often are not taught in programs training mental health and substance use providers, and often are not available as part of routine clinical care for mental health and substance use disorders. This gap, what is known to be effective and the actual delivery of care, is due to problems of access, insurance coverage, and fragmentation of care. In other words, different systems of providers, separation of primary and specialty care, different entities sponsoring and paying for care, poor coordination of care, as well as a variability in training of numerous types of providers and the lack of requirements that evidence-based interventions be taught in training programs.
Wow.
Dude, that is the National Academy of Sciences saying, you guys suck.
That's a hell of an indictment.
That's just sad, dude. That is so sad to be part of
So it's like, this stuff works. We handed it to you. and you shit the bed.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. They go on, they have a quote from the abstract. The very first line in their abstract for this is, approximately 20% of Americans are affected by mental health and substance use disorders, which are associated with significant morbidity and mortality. While the evidence base for the effectiveness of interventions to treat these disorders is sizable, a considerable gap exists between what is known to be effective and the interventions that are actually delivered in clinical care. Because people are doing horse therapy.
Right.
It's because we know what works, dummy. Stop bringing these people around horses. That just use horses to ride. That's it, or eat, or whatever you do with them. Yeah. Like I don't know what this is. I don't know how to break people. Like, it's a whole field though. It's not just people. Like, I think we do a pretty good job. We have a training coming up next week, right? And part of what we do is to convince the people that we're going to train that we know what we're talking about.
That's the first part of the whole training.
And we back that up with numbers and statistics, not good vibes, bro. So I don't know how to fix this. It's not our mandate to fix it, but I don't know what to do.
We have to start there though, before we start claiming that we can do anything about mass shootings.
Well, right. If the National Academy of Sciences is talking about our profession in that way, how the hell do you think we have any business trying to deal with any matters involving like gun control or mass shootings or any of that? Take that money and burn it for all I care. Like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like it's not going to move the needle whatsoever. I just don't trust our field to do this. I mean, give that money to, I don't know, like dogs, dog trainers or something, like anything, like it doesn't matter to me. Like that money will not be well spent on our field whatsoever. It'll be a complete waste of money.
You know, the warp stuff that you're doing, like,
the Weber Addiction and Reentry Program.
Yeah. Like, it's a study, and you have a lot of control over the way those groups go.
Sure.
And the more that, like, if that study were to expand and, I were to come help you start to run groups, like, you've got way more experience running that specific thing. Mm-hmm. I'm decent. I don't have as much experience. It's going to be a little more watered down unless I pick my game up. Mm-hmm. Then we expand it even more. We start adding in some more therapists. Like, the more that we try to expand this tightly run ship, if there's not standards in place and a commitment to understanding the why behind those standards, the efficacy of the whole thing, I guess what I'm trying to say is that, like, it becomes watered down the more people are, the bigger the pool of therapists are, because I don't think that they believe that, I don't know, do they not understand research? They don't understand the concept. I mean, I'd hate to say that, because, like, they must. I don't get what the mental block is, but it just seems like the more people you add into it, the more cooks in the kitchen, the sloppier it gets.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. And one of the things that I would say is some of the people in our field are just not qualified. I mean, to do this work. And here's one of the things I heard also during this training was there was a oh yeah, by the way, they said the word journey like 30 times. Man, it was gross. I'm like, can we please stop saying that word? Don't say that word, folks. Stop saying journey. Like,
find another word.
They kept saying that those who go into mental health, are getting into this field because they have their own mental health issues. I'm like, whoa, that is a ridiculous generalization. And I would.
Well, hold on. Were they saying that there are some mental health therapists that do that, or they're saying that broadly speaking, that's all of our motivations?
It was kind of a broad indictment. Well, I guess it wasn't an indictment because they were looking at it as a strength, as if that somehow bolsters this. I'm like, look. Okay, now the proof, anecdotally, I have seen that a lot of people in our field probably have no business being mental health professionals because of their own problems with emotional dysregulation, right?
I've met a couple.
Yeah, I've seen that happen often, okay? What I would say is think again, now just start applying this to other fields, right? Like doctors get into cure patients because of their own trauma and their own, they too have to have mental health issues. Do you want a physician operating on you with problems with impulsivity or emotional dysregulation?
Oh, God.
Of course you don't. Right? And so to just say that's just, but it seems like it turns this into this mystical, almost magic type of stuff that you're doing, right? And it's kind of sad because when I was trained in cognitive behavioral therapy for substance use, and this was developed by Yale School of Medicine, right? And I was trained by the director of the Yale School of Medicine for the behavioral health side of things. They've gotten so fed up with this, they just have computers do this now, where a person sits at a computer, it doesn't even talk to them. They just read cognitive behavioral interventions, and they're having good outcomes.
Whoa.
Right.
Oh no.
Exactly. Right. And think of how many apps are just out there that you just read something, right?
It's not going to be truckers. We're going to be the first to go, and AI takes over.
Well, no, I don't think so. I think that I think AI would have a hard time adapting to us because it's definitely, to their credit, there is some art to this, okay, and there's some style. But again, I would say I just don't think some people's characteristics, personality, or own mental health is a good mix for this field. Well, and also I don't think we go through the rigorous examination and barriers that a physician has to go through. I mean, by the time you're an MD, you're a G, bro. You have proven
trial by fire.
Right. We know you're there. Now, whether or not you're a good surgeon, I mean, that comes later, but at least when you got in there, okay, I got it. Right. So I'm saying think about this, go back to the tattoos. You have somebody that has underqualified, emotionally, not very stable, personality wise. I mean, may have some traits that are, I don't know, dipping into the disorder type range, cluster B type stuff. And they have an extreme amount of power. I mean, think about tattoo artists. Whatever they put on you is on there for life. And they choose to take artistic liberties often because they know what's best. Because this tool has been given to them and they just feel empowered. I think it's dangerous, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't want the emotionally dysregulated dude that just got in a fight with his girlfriend getting pissed while he's got the tattoo gun in his hand drawing wieners on my back or something.
Right. Or just taking artistic liberties from what I had requested that they put on my body, right? Now, look, not all is lost. I mean, there are great therapists out there. We work with a bunch of them, okay? And I think we do better than most. And there are some solutions that they offered us, okay? So number one was the delivery of quality mental health care requires a workforce adequately trained in the knowledge and skills needed for delivering evidence-based interventions, which is what we're doing. You have a 3-day training lined up next week. That's going to be 8 hours of intense. Here's what you do. You practice it. We role play. We give you feedback. You improve on that. And then we wash, rinse, repeat, and you're going to do every single intervention, and you're going to pretend to be a client, and you're going to do it as and you're going to run these mock groups and everything. And we're looking at this and giving you feedback in real time, right? That's pretty rigorous. And then not only that, we follow that up and make sure you're continuing to do that long term and give you feedback on those long term. That's really good training. Okay, that's how we were trained. And is the content a little sterile at first? Well, of course it is, because it's content, right? But your groups are very different than mine, and my groups are very different than any of our other therapists, which is fine. Mm-hmm. The content needs to be there because you have to replicate the medicine. The style in which you deliver it, bring your personality to there. You have to learn content first, not personality first.
Right.
Yeah. And dude, if you rode in on a horse and did CBT, I don't care. If everybody's on a horse
Hell yeah.
and you're doing CBT, wonderful. I don't know what the horse has to do with anything. I promise
As long as you're doing CBT.
Promise it isn't the medicine. Okay.
Yeah.
I promise it isn't the medicine. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Another one they said was, so there's this organization called the Cochrane Effect Practice and Organization of Care. And they conducted systematic reviews documenting the effectiveness of various provider-focused strategies for quality improvement, have focused overwhelmingly on strategies that entail fidelity monitoring. In other words, having a supervisor observe your techniques to determine if you are adherent and compliant with an evidence-based practice. So one solution is that once the evidence-based practice has been trained, that your supervisor continues to follow up with you and observe you doing that, right?
Man, I was impressed. One of our group therapists randomly reached out to me and just said, "Hey, will you please come sit in on my group? I want you to coach me and tell me what I can do better." Unsolicited, unprompted, just reached out to me. She genuinely wanted my feedback on what to improve. That impressed me. Mm-hmm. I think that if you're a clinician listening to that, be willing. Look, she was anxious, but she still asked me to do it.
Yeah.
I was sitting in and I was watching her. She was nervous. She still delivered. And when I gave her the feedback, I gave her, she actually did really good, which is probably the people that need me watching over their shoulder the most that aren't going to ask me, or that are, ducking and dodging away from that type of supervision. But so she did a good job. I had a couple things I gave her to work on. She received it. If you can humble yourself enough to ask somebody, whether it's a supervisor or even just a peer, to watch and to ideally, if there's a structured format to giving the feedback, even better, and those exist. But if you can have the humility for that, you're going to improve immediately. Within one group, you're going to improve.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. And it's kind of a growth mindset, but growth and not openness, because look, there's not a debate. There's not a debate of which is better. I know what's the best, and I have the evidence to show it. And I don't even want to talk to you. If you insist on doing horse therapy, you don't exist, in my opinion. Okay. I don't even want to have a conversation with you, because that is nonsense. Okay. You're talking about magic. And aside from Shin Lim on America's Got Talent, I don't believe in magic. Okay. I just don't. It's just David Copperfield. Are you Dave? If you're not, get out of my face. Chris Angel, maybe. Okay. But I'm just saying, we don't have to have the debate. There's no debate about it. Have a growth mindset of wanting to get better at this and excel in your career. And this is the other thing, though, is two more things that they said. Another suggestion was a pay for performance model. Okay. Under this model, clinicians and provider organizations like ours, they would receive bonuses if they meet or exceed certain quality thresholds that are specified by provider contracts.
That's a good idea.
So not just, hey, here's $250 million, do what you will with it. That money, burn that money. That money's going to go towards nothing. Right.
Merit-based.
We're going to give you enough to implement what you say you're going to implement. And when you show us good outcomes, we're going to give you a bonus.
Dude.
Right?
Why isn't that being done? That's great.
They do it in the medical field all the time.
Do they really?
Of course they do. So why are behavioral health not held to the same standard? Why not?
There should be a version of that we can do just internally.
It's almost like people are scared of hurting other people's feelings. Look, I don't care about people's feelings. We're talking about crimes happening and people being hurt.
Someone's daughter.
I don't care about your feelings. Yeah. Okay. If we're talking about, again, kids in a school getting blown away, dude, I don't care about your feelings at all. I don't care. If those are the stakes, I couldn't care less about your feelings. So don't tell me about that. And we're so terrified of hurting somebody's feelings because they got a bad review on the way they conducted group.
We're just so agreeable in this field.
Right.
It's a bad trait.
Last one they said, another way holding behavioral health practitioners accountable is provider profiling and public reporting. They do this in the medical field as well. The collection of data and issuance of periodic reports to providers on their performance relative to that of other providers in the practice setting, provider group, or overall plan or payer has been carried out in the medical arena for years. So doctors have been doing this for years. In other words, this doctor performs better than this doctor. And that's public knowledge. And you can look that up.
I didn't know that.
Right. Huh. Provider profiling is based on the premise that giving providers feedback that compares their performance with that of others will motivate them to improve in areas in which they may be underperforming. So one of our friends, he was a realtor a long time ago. And he told me, he said, they posted sales of everybody next to each other. You walk into a car dealership. I went down to Ken Garff when I bought a car not too long ago. And every salesman was put on there and they had sales numbers put right up next to each other. We're talking about car salesmen, people, and realtors. Nothing against realtors or car salesmen. I'm glad they're doing that. I'm saying we have mental health practitioners, and out of fear of hurting somebody's feelings, we won't compare their outcomes to the next mental health practitioner. Dude. What is wrong with our field? This goes on. It says, when it comes to public reporting, this can improve the quality of care by providing consumers and family members with information on the quality of care delivered by different clinicians, or public reporting can facilitate consumer selection of high quality provider. Secondly, public reporting of quality metrics can encourage individual clinicians and provider organizations to engage in efforts to improve the quality of care, both to protect their reputation and to attract new patients. Now, look, if those standards were in place, right, how quickly would people ferret themselves out? They're like, I don't want to do this.
Dude,
you're telling me I can't do horse therapy anymore? Deuces. Awesome. Good for you and good for us.
Right.
Like, that's all they need to do is rigorously implement these things and say, we're no longer going to tolerate nonsense and we're no longer going to pay for it. And if you do that, that's private, it's experimental, and do what you will with it.
Dude, doesn't that kind of like, if you knew that was implemented, doesn't that kind of fire you up to get better?
Oh, dude, I would love that.
I know.
If we had our standards of like clinician by clinician
actually competing
with one another,
hell yeah,
like statewide, oh my god, I'd be like, let's go, son. You know what I mean?
Studying.
Yeah. I would not want to be embarrassed in my field. And unfortunately, I'm embarrassed every day when I hear stuff like this. This is just embarrassing.
It is.
So I honestly, to the degree that our field can handle this, I don't think they can. I don't think that money is going to be well spent. I don't think it's going to move the needle whatsoever, unless things like this are put in place.
I agree 100%. You did a lot of research, bro.
I know, right? Yeah. Well, it was kind of important.
Yeah. Right.
So
can't talk about the need for research without doing research.
Yeah. Well, I think I think that's it we have to say about this, but we have I think our next episode, I want to.
We always screw up when we do that.
Yeah.
Just throw it out there. Who cares?
Well, yeah, we do have a Villains to Victory coming up, though.
That's some point.
I know. No, that's coming up, I think, next week. So, yeah. Look at that. I'll have to double check, but confirm. But those are always fun episodes. So, yeah. So anyway, is that it? Oh, we have to say this?
Yeah.
Okay. So hopefully this hit home for some of you, because this is an important issue. Take your work seriously. Stop doing horse therapy. Don't give freaking mushrooms to dogs.
Stop doing horse shit.
Yeah. Don't give mushrooms a dog, you freak. See you guys. And that about does it for this episode of the podcast. If you like this episode, don't forget to bake a batch of oatmeal raisin cookies for the 5-star rating. But when you deliver them, pretend that you actually bake them a batch of chocolate chip cookies instead. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Please help us grow by sharing with a friend. We'd like to stay and chat longer, but we're lying. Good night.